Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So since we were getting many questions after last week, brief presentation and talk on family constellation, transgenerational trauma therapy. So I thought maybe it's better that if there are more questions coming up, we'll do this brief session today, just
Yes.
to clear out
That's
what the
great.
process is, how does it work, and there could be so many things because it's a completely different way of looking at our problems that we have in our life. It's a completely different outlook. We may have heard of things that if mother or father or few other people in the family are, for example, diabetic, they have diabetes, so probably the children are also going to get it, and we've heard of all these things, but we do not know the whys of it. And that's where constellation actually helps deal with those issues that people have. So doesn't matter if it's chronic physical illness or if it's an emotional a chronic emotion. For example, there are many people out there who have so many emotions coming from right from their childhood, and it's chronic in nature, and ultimately that's going to cause a chronic disease or inflammation in the body. And that also sometimes medical science cannot explain why this is happening. So why not dig deeper into the root cause, where this is coming from? Why am I, I haven't, I, there could be also people who are, health conscious, but despite that, they have physical issues or they have emotional issues. So dealing with that is so, so important, especially we have learned so many lessons in 2020, beginning from 2020, since Corona, that collectively, if we do not clear our traumas or our issues, even at a collective basis, is going to come out. Sometimes we call it karma, but why not deal with it at the root cause so that even our generation, which is to come later, is unburdened immensely from it. So the more healing work we do, we are not only healing our past, our ancestry, we are also healing our future children, which is so very sacred and so very important when you look at it that way. So that's one of the reason why I'm so much in love with this work, because it has immensely given so many people that I've come across answers and the reasons, and they can they become much more aware of where these issues are coming from. There's a concept called ancestral clock, and it's very interesting. If you can Google about it later on, what is ancestral clock. So if a mother lost, for example, if a mother lost her husband due to an illness or anything at a certain age, the daughter probably later on is also going to lose her husband, some in around the same age. That's ancestral clock, but we were never aware of this. When I look back at my own personal life, I see so many similarities. How my father and mother have been affected in their own childhood, how they were brought up, what they felt, and they're not aware of it most of the time. For them, it could be a normal thing. Going through, you know, problems in life could be a very normal thing for many people. But do we not want to feel liberated, at least at some level? you know so it's very important to do this kind of a work, which is also called the movement of the soul. It's not a conscious work, it's a movement of the soul. Where are you? I've also come across people, who say that we have done years of work, we are a coach, we are a therapist. I'm not talking about you, but there are other people that I've come across who say that we have done so much work, I'm in a good place, but there is one thing that has never been resolved. So I would ask them, what is it? And then they would go on and on. And when I put up a constellation, it clearly shows that they are still in their childhood unprocessed trauma, something they may have logically worked upon at, but never really worked at the soul level. So at the soul level, they're still in the same realm, in the same timeline, so to speak. So it's so important to really go back and deal with that, so that whatever is still unresolved, you're able to go past beyond it and move forward in life with much strength and courage and awareness. So we do this work for our children.
So just adding one thing here, Shasta, to what you've said,
Hmm.
very true that, sometimes we need to work on, and me in the last so many years, I've done a lot of work at the soul, deep soul level, where I've gone back to my childhood.
Yeah.
There's so many unresolved traumas. but still I can completely, understand the importance of this, because even if you've worked at yourself at your deep soul level, if
Hmm.
there are things that have carried on generationally, I might not be able to work on those.
Exactly. That's
So
what my
this is
point is.
this
Yeah.
is where the family constellation part comes in, and I've done that workshop with you because I realized I've done so much with me. I've resolved so many things that have to do with me, but yet there are some areas of my life which still seem something amiss over there, that needs a little more deeper work. And like,
Yeah.
when I always ask, the universe always sends me the answers, and my answer came in the form of you, where you told me about family constellations, and then we did that workshop together, which of
True.
course helped me. So
True.
it's going beyond your deeper self. I've done a lot of deep soul work on myself, but then this is going beyond that, as to healing the generational traumas,
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
generational issues which you might not even be aware of.
And interestingly, when you say that, Shugufta, what comes to my mind is a trauma language. We all have that. It's another thing that I'm really very interested about, because when hear people saying something, I actually catch certain words which speaks for of the trauma language. So there's a trauma language we all carry. There could be people who would say, "Oh, it feels like a hell. It's hell," or "life is shit," or and if they repeatedly say things like that, it means that there is a story. We need to go back a few generation, maybe one generation, two generation, to understand who had gone through that kind of a hell.
And I completely remember the workshop that we had, Shaista. I remember that one case that we were working on, and
Hmm,
it went down to where there was a murder in the family, and she wasn't aware of it.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
So these are the kind of things, and it was
I
like,
think, yeah, yeah. I remember. I think it was about her alcoholic brother, but brother was alcoholic or something of that sort was there. When we put up the constellation, and showed that he was sort of uh, following or sort of atoning himself for some murder that had happened in the family.
in
So
the
some
family.
kind of atonement happens. And
Yeah.
again, that's very soul work. We may label people who are addictive to drugs or to alcohol and have certain um, uh, behaviors that we can't consciously understand why they do, and we label those people that they're careless and that they're ruining their life. And but we do not know at a soul level they're trying to bring in something back into the system which is forgotten. They're trying to balance out the system, and of course they're also not aware of it. They're not really aware of it. And only when this kind of work is done. There was a client who came to me some time ago with some kind of addiction. I don't want to speak it out completely, but he had a very weird addiction. And when I worked on his situation for two, three different constellations that he came for and did with me around the same issue, a month later, he said that after so and so date, he has not got back to that addictive behavior. He said, I've put a full stop to that behavior. I see things very clearly now. So that's there it is to it. We may, I mean, and that fellow had never told anyone about his behavior. His close family members even weren't aware of it. So he was struggling with that behavior on his own. So imagine how many people begin to go back to their life and feel it fully, instead of struggling it with themselves, without having an answer to it, without having a solution to it. So constellation is a solution focused therapy.
Yeah.
It
So
looks at the solutions.
yeah. Let's ask the people here
Yeah.
in the group on the call if they have any questions specifically for you.
Hmm.
You can unmute yourself and go ahead with your questions.
Yes, anything that comes to your mind. You can also talk about your own issue if there's any.
Nothing coming to mind? You need to unmute yourself, Shamsia Bhabi. Okay, yeah.
Okay, okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Welcome, Sam.
Actually, I was not there last session when
Hmm.
you took, but
Mm-hmm.
since Shagufta Bhabi had told, just listen to the recording. I did listen to the recording.
Mm-hmm.
There, one of the one of the ladies, she was saying that uh, problem with the husband, and
Hmm,
if you give back, if you hurt him a little bit, or if you resist a little bit, he may come back to you.
hmm, hmm,
Okay, like
hmm,
there is, why is she behaving like this a little bit, normally she doesn't. But
hmm,
in my case it is not the same. It
hmm,
is not the same. When I try to resist a little bit, he goes away from me.
hmm,
Okay, let her come back, I don't care.
hmm,
That kind of an attitude he has.
hmm, hmm.
What can I do about that?
So you need to look into what is it that's in you,
Hmm.
which you are carrying from your own childhood that remains unresolved. And this is what is creating this kind of a dynamic between you and your husband. Nothing is out of us. The answers are always inside. And it takes a lot of courage to actually go inside and figure out where this dynamic is, coming from. Where has this reality? When in my lifetime I had created this reality? Maybe there's a belief that men are
Hmm.
like that. Maybe there's a belief that in a relationship, a woman has to act in a certain way and a man has to behave in a certain way. And it often comes from our own experiences of looking at our mother and father, how they were in their relationship, how we have perceived them, their relationship from the eyes of a child. It's very, very important to look at that. What do we believe about our mother and father's relationship
Hmm.
from the perspective of a child? And that definitely plays around during the time when we create our own relationship. It always, always is a reflection of that belief or that experience, how close we are with our mother and father. How did we, because you're a female, how was your experience with your first male uh, experience, so to speak, your father? He's your
Hmm.
first male experience, mother is your first female experience. So, how were you with your father, how he was with you, what kind of a belief you formed around men when
Hmm.
you interacted with your father, and again what kind of belief your mother had about men.
My father. Okay.
If she hold your father with some grudge, with some resentment, with some repressed anger,
Hmm.
that is definitely going to affect you as a wife later on. And sometimes we carry those beliefs from the mother. If you're a female, you're a wife, so mother's belief need to be given back to her so that you can create your own newer beliefs. So it's not your husband. Always remember that when we get into a relationship, whether it's love or whether it's arranged, doesn't matter. What whoever we manifest as a partner, it is manifested out of our own internal needs that have never been met by our parents. It's our own internal needs that we want our partner to fulfill. And however we behave in a relationship is out of our own internal wounds that are unhealed. So your husband also had a childhood.
Hmm.
What kind of a childhood it was? Very, very important to look at that. So when we look at our husband's childhood and from the family system that he has come through and had formed his relationship with you see him with all his burdens, all his unresolved issues with his mother and father, the internal wounds that people often don't speak about, and hence they project anger instead of saying that we are in pain. I couldn't get the love of my mother, I couldn't get the support of my father, and this is how I feel. Instead of saying that, people mask it
Hmm.
and they instead behave in an angry way. It's a defense, it's a coping mechanism, right? And when we look at that, we actually begin to feel compassion for our spouse. A lot of heartache, a lot of separations, a lot of divorces can be avoided when both the spouse can look at the family of origin from where they come and feel compassion for it. It's a very different way of looking at things. It's compassion based, and it actually frees people, from blaming the other person. We cannot blame our partner for behaving in a certain way because however they're behaving is a projection of us. They are mirroring us all the time. So healing self is extremely important to come to a place of peace with however we were raised as a child. I hope this makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But again, why is it? Why it has to be only from my side?
Yes, because the wounds are yours and it's our responsibility to heal ourselves. My husband or my children or my mother and father do not bear this responsibility. It's not theirs. They have their own stuff. If they do not choose to heal, it's entirely up to them. But as an individual, if something is
Mm.
hurting me, it's my responsibility to look at where this hurt and at what point of time this hurt was created. Nobody will be able to push my buttons if those buttons never existed. So if I'm getting triggered, I have a button, and those the other person who we are intimately involved with can sense that button energetically. So we need to dissolve those buttons. Then we are not triggered.
Yeah, actually, he knows my triggering points. Actually, those buttons he knows,
That's I call them buttons.
and that is why he clicks onto that button and
Exactly,
derives pleasure.
exactly. And it
Actually,
happens energetically. You may never
yes,
told him these are my buttons, but he knows because we are
he knows.
energy. We are all energy. Physical body is just a vessel that we are
Yeah,
in, but we have a soul and we have a consciousness, and the other person exactly knows what our
knows.
buttons are. So the more you heal, the more awareness you bring into your consciousness, the more you're going to uplift your own mental level of frequency of your mental understanding. And he is also going to catch up on that somehow. So I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Inshallah, he catches up.
Yeah, yeah. So work on yourself. It doesn't matter how long it takes, it may take years. I've
Mm.
seen people who have been, therapists as well, but they have been healing themselves for like more than 10 years. The issues never seem to resolve. They resolve at some level, but something new comes up.
Yeah.
So we have to be gentle with ourselves. We can't judge ourselves that, okay, I've been, having healing sessions. I've been doing so much work for like 4, 5, 10 years. Why? Because there is so much trauma in the
Mm.
collective consciousness as well. And as humans, we can't say that I am different from the rest of the humans. Sometimes when issues come to the surface, we are also clearing something from the collective trauma as well. So it's a very sacred work. If you work on yourself,
Mm.
somebody else also gets an opportunity to work on exactly something similar at a later point of time,
Mm.
and we may not be aware of it. We may not be aware of that person, but that's how collectively we can also heal the world. And I'm sure Shugufta will agree to it.
100%. 100%. Like you said, our outer world is nothing but a reflection of what's going on inside.
Inside.
And that's one thing. And then the other realization is, of course, we are so interconnected, as things that happen into the family, which even if we don't like it, even if we distance ourselves consciously, but still
Yes,
you cannot alienate yourself from the genetic pool or from the family that you come
Mm.
from. You just
yes,
cannot.
absolutely.
I know I have distanced myself, keeping some people where they need to, and because we just don't match up. But
Hmm,
then there's no way I can completely alienate myself from the people I want to, because we belong to that,
hmm,
like Shaista calls it, a family constellation. And whether I like it or not, their energies are linked to mine.
exactly,
Yeah. If I
exactly,
can, if I can put it in the way I understand it, wherein yes, you're working so much on yourself, but still there are things which are, you have to take on, because and they don't belong to you, but you have to take it on because you're part of that entire system. So
exactly.
then you have to work on, you work on yourself, and then you work on beyond yourself. And it's a never
And it
ending
begins to,
process.
yeah, exactly, never ending
It's a
process.
never ending
And
process, because there's not one character, no, in the family. I mean, we all have family
Mm.
who you we do have
true,
everybody having their own personal, baggages that they carry. They don't want to
exactly.
work on themselves. So then
And
you
then they blame, that it's
they
because
don't
of
want
you
to
I'm
work on
in this case.
themselves, and then you now have the responsibility to work on for yourself. You
Yes.
have the responsibility to now, kind of clear off things for them as well, because in some way or the other it's affecting you as well.
Of
It is going
course.
to affect you because you are connected as a system.
And when you don't respond, or when you don't react, when you are being triggered, the
Mm.
other person will also begin to wonder what has happened to this person.
Mm. Mm.
They're not getting triggered. So
Yeah.
they'll try once and twice. And then if they don't find the buttons, something in them will also shift.
Mm.
That's a reality. I've seen it personally in my life as well. So when Shugufta, you said that, you've distanced yourself from, certain people who sometimes we label as toxic, narcissist and all that. What happens is that sometimes we become like the ones we reject. So if a son rejects the father for any behavior, it doesn't mean that he's going to benefit from that rejection. The rejection is going to come out in other forms. He may find it difficult to have a successful business. He may find it difficult to have a good relation or cordial relation with his boss or with his partners if he has a business. That energy is going to show up somewhere or the other for sure.
So my thing, just let me read. So when I say distance, it's not like cutting off the cords completely.
I understand. Yeah,
It's
yeah. But
just, yeah.
I was speaking in that context that people, when they distance themselves, they actually, you know, judge them and
Yeah. So it's
cut.
yeah, it's not about that. It's just about, even if you don't want to, get into a situation where you get into those kind of conflicts, and
Hmm.
you just let the other person be, and say it's be and let
True.
be. So you
Mm.
be and
True.
you let the other person be. But in
True.
spite of that, so what I meant was, in spite of having that, where you
Hmm.
are letting yourself be and you're letting the other person be, so
Hmm.
live and let live kind of a thing.
Yes. Yes.
And in spite of that, you would still have it affecting you because you belong to that family system.
True.
If they have not evolved, it's somewhere going to
So we
affect
keep
you.
that in our heart that I understand you have certain issues or certain ideas about me, which because of which we are not in, good terms.
Mm.
However, my love is still there for you, and that's an inner attitude I'm talking about. We may
Mm.
not have to say it out loud. So I still love you, I still hold you very dear to my heart, but because of this, it's better if we keep our distance. But for me, you always remain my so and so. That's an
Mm.
inner attitude, having no attachments or expectations from the relationship, and then accepting that this is how it is. So, not criticizing or judging or shaming, and nothing of that. It's all about the internal attitude.
Mm.
And when people actually cut ties, with their relatives or with their, parents, for example, it doesn't mean that they're out of the system. We call it exclusion within systems. And because of exclusion, what happens is that this knowing field or the morphogenic field, which is around all of us, especially within the systems that we belong to, it actually extends to that person. It stretches. So have you seen, the flock of birds
Mm.
in the air? I spoke about it that day. So there, even if one bird or few birds have, got lost, they're still aware that this is where they are going to, and they will follow it.
Follow.
So the field actually extends to accommodate them.
Shaista. Hello,
Yes.
am I
Hi,
audible?
Zeba.
Yeah. Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is the same thing what Shagupta said that was bothering me after you told me about exclusion.
Hmm.
So this thing kept bothering me because I go through the same issues where I don't match up with people,
Hmm.
you know, to certain levels. I find them toxic. So then when people are not able to understand what you're trying to project, so then it's like better to distance yourself.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
okay, हाँ है salam dua है ठीक है, but not get into. I don't give them too much access into my life, and I
Hmm.
don't get into their life.
That's
So
good.
is
That's
this
in a way it's good.
I wanted to know, is this also exclusion? Am I doing something like
So,
uh,
like I said, it's about the internal attitude. If you
yeah,
keep that hatred in your heart for them
yeah, no, no, no.
for
Yeah,
years, that
hmm.
has a has a
Okay,
issue.
No,
But if
it's
you
like
do it
more
for your own
hatred,
peace
more,
of mind,
yeah, peace of mind, yeah.
and in order to keep healthy
To
boundaries,
avoid
because
to avoid drama, actually to avoid drama, because
yeah,
certain people create a lot of,
yeah, no matter how much you try to explain yourself, yeah, so it's, so that is healthy boundaries. Sometimes we need to have healthy boundaries.
that
And
is
if
what,
people do
yeah.
not, yeah, and in our families we hardly knew about boundaries, by the way. It's
But
Yeah.
something
what
I've
about
also realized that, if one parent, for example, is having mood swings, why does
Hmm.
everybody else also have to be feeling the same? Why can't they? So it's important to understand that we must keep a
Yeah.
sense of our own boundary as well. And if somebody is
Yeah.
trying to step into it, then you
Because
need to,
I always felt that I have to be nice. Like, I always had this notion, no, I have to be nice. However, the other person is behaving, I have to be nice. But I
hmm,
went through a lot because of that
no,
being.
that it weighs too much on
Yeah,
you.
then I realized that no, I am nice. Why I have to be nice? So it is,
I don't have
I
to
am being
prove this to
nice.
anyone that I'm nice.
So,
Kind of a thing.
but I want to avoid this drama which is happening around me.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that is all right, right? So this doesn't
Yes,
come into
yes, yes. No,
picture.
no, that is fine.
My
That is fine.
intention has to be clear. Like नहीं हमको कुछ आपसे problem नहीं है.
Hmm.
We are good. I'm good at my place. You are good at your.
Yeah, yeah,
Fine.
yeah, exactly. That is fine. Exclusion is mostly when we, never even speak about them with family members, and we internally feel as if they don't even exist.
but
If
what
they have
about
broken a family tradition, a family culture, a belief, if they have done something out of what the family is supposed to do, so like their own values, if a value system has been broken by a member, and we like exclude them for life, that now we
I
don't want to
get it.
see you,
Like
that
sometimes
is exclusion.
they get married off somewhere, so then the parents don't talk and all that stuff.
Yes, and for years it goes on. And sometimes if a person goes and lives in another country and never really comes back, and people don't really talk about them, that is also an exclusion. Why is that person, they have gone to such a place where they are not in touch with their family members anymore? We have seen all those cases. So it's important to know who else was excluded before them. And exclusions are also in the form of miscarriages and abortions. That is one thing that people have never really understood, that it can actually have a lot of issues for children who come later. Abortion is at a soul level considered a murder of a soul, and it has its own repercussions. So that is a clear case of exclusions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zeba.
Anybody has any other questions? I mean, you can just unmute yourself. I don't think so. Vanita, do you have any questions?
Sorry, yeah, I was just trying to understand. I joined the conversation a little late,
Hmm.
but when Ziba was talking about, she trying to be good and the other person not reciprocating that way, and then we just creating like a barrier for that person, saying, okay, I'm not going to let it affect me. How does that work when the other person doesn't actually understand that we have stopped being good because they have hurt us? Or we are still good to you even though you're hurting us, but how would they realize that their gestures, their behavior is actually hurting someone?
They may not realize, and we should be okay with that.
So it's okay for them to continue hurting us and we just
No,
kind
not
of,
realizing that they're hurting us. There are so many people out there who are never going to realize that they have actually hurt the other person, because everybody does whatever they do with a good conscience. Even the most wars that we have witnessed in the history, on both the sides, are done with good conscience on both the sides. Nobody's going to say I'm you know I want victims on the other side, or I want to victimize the other side. They always have their own reasons why they're doing that. So all the wars are done with good conscience. both the sides. So we have to understand that if the other person resorts to hurting us, again, what is it in me that is getting triggered, that is getting hurt? I still need to go back within.
Even if it is intentional from their side, like for example,
Yes.
if they know that something I'm going, like say there's an ex person, he or she keeps doing exactly the same thing when that person is being told that this is actually hurting someone,
Hmm.
try not to do this, and it
Hmm.
keeps repeating itself, it keeps repeating itself, no matter how many times you've told them in various different formats.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what my first of all, it's a very hypothetical question. If you have a real issue, you can, clearly talk about it, because we are only few people here. So feel free to
Yeah,
do that, because it's very
yeah.
hypothetical. I need to know who is this and who is that. What's the relation between them? Then I can
Okay.
be a bit more specific.
So let's say for example, there is a person in my family
Hmm.
who keeps behaving in such a way where it keeps disturbing me,
Mm-hmm.
and that message has been passed on a couple of times through XYZ other people saying, this behavior is causing a problem to Vanita. She's felt hurt about this,
Hmm.
and has been informed. But
Hmm.
that same kind of scenario keeps repeating day in, let's say every other day, or it keeps repeating multiple number of times. So should we just accept it? Should I just accept it like, yes, this is the behavior of this person,
No,
and that's how she's
absolutely
going to
not.
be or he's going to be?
No, absolutely not. So first of all, you need to understand, what do you, how do you feel about yourself? Why is someone overstepping within your boundaries and doing whatever he's doing or she's doing? Otherwise, if we have a clear sense of our own boundaries,
Mm,
okay, nobody else will be able to step in and violate it. So you need to go back and understand at what point of time, sometimes also in the womb of the mother or after you were born, sense of boundaries were violated.
mm,
And that becomes your reality, where every other person, or sometimes, it comes into your experience that people are, for example, doing certain things that you do not want them to do. So that clearly makes, from my perspective and from my experience, a clear sense of lack of boundaries. And lack of boundaries also are a result of low self-worth or low self-esteem. So you need to go back and heal yourself. I mean,
okay.
I've been into that situation, so I clearly understand what you're trying to say. But
Okay.
it's important to go within. Otherwise, they will continue to do, and of course, if they continue to do so, they also know this is how you're going to react, and they
Yeah.
do also benefit from it in some way. So they're draining you of your energy and of your life force. It is very, very important to deal with that. You cannot allow anybody else to step into your sense of self and tell you who you are. Sorry, my son just came into the room. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
very
so you're
important
right.
to
I mean, it drains you out completely when it feels like this person is purposely doing something,
purposely. Yes, yes.
to make my life difficult, or
Hmm.
spoil a special day that I have planned.
Hmm.
Or like if there's a special day, that's the time this person would come up and do something that is going to spoil my day, and I'll
Yeah.
completely block myself out and will not um
Have
will
you
not
confronted this person?
celebrate. Yes.
Okay. And then?
Yes. And I've been told that no, I'm taking it wrong. It's not what the intention was. It's
Hmm.
just me thinking it wrong. And in fact, I was blamed for it, saying, I'm trying to create distances and things like that.
Hmm.
So
So,
I had
Vanita,
become,
uh, did your mother or father also went through something similar where they were sort of, bullied or
yes, 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 they have been.
yes,
They have been, and they are still being.
with someone else, by someone
Yes,
else?
yes,
Yes. So see, this is something that also is subconsciously passed down to you. You're also in the same, because there is. So we need to go back. Where did it start from?
Right. Okay. This is something then similar to what we discussed last time.
Exactly. Going back and trying to understand at what point of time, what was the event that created this kind of energy in your system, where there's
Okay.
a victim and a perpetrator kind of a dynamics. So it's very
Okay.
important to understand where's the victim energy coming from, where's the perpetrator energy coming from, and dealing with that.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank
this
you.
was, thank you, Vanita.
All right.
Any more questions?
So I don't think so. There are any more.
Yeah, hi Shagufta Appa, this is Samreen here.
Hello, Samreen. How are you?
Good, Alhamdulillah. How are you doing and how are you, Shaista?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, sure. I had a question which I've been really pondering about from the last
Mhm,
session that I didn't attend it because I was traveling, but I
mhm,
did happen to see the recorded version. And then, you kept mentioning about the abortion and the miscarriage. And that has really got me thinking and,
mhm,
also got me a little worried because I happen to have not an abortion, but I had a miscarriage
mhm.
because I suffered with very very severe falciparum malaria when I was expecting my first baby,
Okay.
and so the minute the doctors put me on quinine, I started spotting, and then the baby started going away.
Hmm.
So and so that was like it was quite traumatic for me because it was my first pregnancy,
Yeah.
and and the other thing is that it was not something which happened deliberately. It just happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was not an abortion which was deliberately done.
Yes.
So yeah, so now after that, the next year I conceived and I had my son,
Hmm.
who's about 14 years old now.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I've been trying to wonder what effect, because whatever you mentioned pertaining to abortion and
Hmm.
miscarriage and how it has an effect on the next child. I was a little curious to know if the effect is really
Not the
bad. And
next child, but it could be any other child.
okay, so in what way, like, is it like always the case, or it is not necessarily, that it should happen? I mean, I'm a little confused about this whole
Hmm.
thing, because I've
Hmm.
never really heard such a thing ever. So,
Yes, that's the thing. We've not heard of it. So,
yeah,
Samreen, how, at what month did the child?
It was, I think, within the first month only. Like, it was very, very initial. I think it
Hmm.
was about let's say 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's what
Hmm.
happened.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah. So the following year is when I conceived and I had
So tell
my
me, how has your health been in all these
health.
14, 15?
Not been very good because I've always had these lower back issues, and then I've been trying to work out and strengthen and everything, but still, like, see, it does affect you mentally to a large extent.
Hmm.
And then that trauma, what has whatever trauma that I went through has left a lot of impact on my mind.
Yes.
So
So
yeah,
if you
because
deal with it, your son probably wouldn't have to deal with it. That's the whole point of doing this kind of work. And there
okay.
is a thing called, which also Shugufta mentioned in, I think, the voice note she had shared in the group about
Mm-hmm.
how, it affected her, and she obviously wasn't aware of it until she did this process. And
Mm-hmm.
it's called mother's guilt, the guilt of a mother.
Okay. Okay.
And the guilt of the mother basically means that if consciously we are not aware of it, if we do not um, mourn,
Mm-hmm.
if you do not mourn and grieve for the child that couldn't make it
Okay.
consciously,
Mm-hmm.
and we go on and have another child, you
Mm-hmm.
know in a rush, sort of, without grieving the loss that the
Mm-hmm.
mother goes through, that
Mm-hmm.
has an effect, that has an effect on the health of the mother,
Mm-hmm.
as well as sometimes the relationship between the husband and the wife.
Okay.
And so it's important that the mother deals with it, mother looks into it. It may sound painful because it's like going back in the same memory, same So sort of reliving it and coming to a point where there is some kind of inner resolution,
Mm.
so that the
Mhm.
effect doesn't get passed on to other children. So how
Okay.
is your child? I mean, it can manifest as anything, for that matter. It can manifest as any other condition, something completely unrelated to it.
Okay.
But the energy, because the energy is unresolved, there was a
Mm-hmm.
soul that wanted to come, and for some reason, it just couldn't make it. And the
Okay.
mother, deep down at a soul level, feels guilty for not having had the chance to protect the child, for not having had the chance to take the child in your arms and know that person, know that child, know that soul. It's a
Mm-hmm.
deep soul level grieving that
Mm-hmm.
happens. And if we do not do it consciously, then our body does it for us. Then the
Oh.
body takes over and does the grieving process. So the back pain and any other physical issue, god forbid if there is any,
Mm.
might be, can be traced back to that incident.
Okay.
Because you said that after a year you had your son.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the grieving process, from where I feel it, has not been completely done.
Okay. Okay. But then, we're not aware of even such a feeling, or, that such
That's the
things
thing,
as
we're
a,
not aware of it. These are hidden. They're completely in the unconscious. And how
okay.
many of
Okay.
us are aware of what's happening in our unconscious or subconscious mind? We are not.
Absolutely.
Unless and until
Absolutely.
we do a process. Shobhita will vouch on that.
Yeah, so this is
Absolutely.
this is precisely what had happened, right? Which is what I shared in the audio clip. Is that we were
Mm-hmm.
working on somebody else's case, which had to do
Yeah.
with, and I was the observer there. So
Okay.
I was not even the case in study, I was the observer. And
Mm-hmm.
this thing got triggered in me, wherein it surfaced. Probably it was there somehow. I didn't even know I was pregnant, for that
Yeah,
matter. I wasn't
yeah.
even aware that that was a pregnancy. And it kind of triggered something in me which made me very uncomfortable. And I told Shaista after the workshop that this is coming up for me, and I think I need to, kind of work on this, or maybe delve deeper into what this is. And last March, when I was there at the Journey workshop, the last one, and this thing, when I was doing the process on myself, this thing surfaced out.
Yeah.
It came to the forefront where I had a knowing that yes, it was a pregnancy. Just a few days, it
Few
was
days,
like
yeah.
less than, it was just a week old, but
Mm.
nevertheless, even a week old is a week old,
Is a
is
yeah.
a week old. And then I had my resolution with that unborn, or that fetus, which was just a few days old, and I had my grieving process, and I kind of resolved it over there in the journey session that I had. But the thing is, the point that I'm trying to make here is that I wasn't even aware of it, and it got triggered as an
By
observer
somebody else, yeah. So
by
she was
somebody else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
representing
With
a case for
another,
someone
yeah.
else where there was a miscarriage that came up
Okay.
for someone
Okay.
else. But
Oh.
Shugufta started resonating with it. So Shugufta, my question is, how has your life changed after that? How do you feel? What
Uh,
got shifted?
Very difficult to say, Shaista, what really got shifted, because, for me, um, I'm constantly working on myself on so many levels, so many things I'm doing,
Absolutely.
and I cannot pinpoint कि इसकी वजह से ये हुआ या इसकी वजह से
Hmm.
वो हुआ, because I'm
Hmm.
constantly doing so much work on myself on all
Absolutely.
levels. I work on myself
Hmm.
energetically, I work on
Hmm.
myself consciously, I do these processes on myself. But there's a lot that shifted, and there was, just after that the lockdown happened.
Hmm.
And I was there, I came back, I quit my job, I started a new business. So
Hmm.
there are so many things, that the shifts that keep
Yeah,
happening in my
true.
life, and there's
True.
not one thing I can attribute it to. So
Hmm.
I'm sure it had a result, it created a shift, but very difficult for me to pinpoint, okay, this was the shift, because there's so
Absolutely.
many things I'm doing simultaneously to make my life better. And
Better.
I definitely, one thing I can definitely say, that my awareness, my life is definitely getting better. The way I look, if you look at me like
You look a
people,
lot younger than I had met you
people
before.
tell me that you're looking younger and younger, whenever we see you the last time. And I think it's just because I'm letting go. I'm just releasing
So much.
so
Yes.
much of thing that is there inside me at all times. I'm so much better able to deal with, the triggers around me. I don't
Hmm.
get so much. I mean, of course, we are all humans. We do have
Yeah,
emotions.
yeah.
We would get triggered. but then it's so much better than what it was
It becomes
earlier.
manageable, eventually.
Manageable. And then, like I said, it's just like getting this more awareness, you evolving yourself as a person, and you being
Absolutely.
able to do so much more things that you didn't think you were capable of doing earlier on. So there's always so much of shift happening in my life, and I cannot pinpoint one, but I'm sure 100%
But you look a lot younger, that's what I can say from my
that
point of view.
things, as I go on releasing things, I'm
Hmm.
sure it is making those shifts, which is helping me in some way or the other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions? All right. So I don't think there are any more questions coming up, but yes,
Hmm.
then let's just to tell you guys that we are planning to have this workshop on Saturday 8th. If anybody wants to join in, please let us know now so that we can, plan
Yeah.
it in a nice way for everybody. So we would
And
be,
since it's online, so it's easier for many people to come in.
yeah, so you're not restricted by boundaries here again. So you could be from any
Absolutely.
part of the world, and then you can still come in as either, some a case to be resolved, or
Yes.
probably as an observer,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it helps either which way.
Because even as an observer, you tend to get a lot of healing and awareness and understanding, because you'll resonate with something else that's happening with, in somebody else, because you'll be representing as well. So just like Shogufta represented and something of her came to the surface, so when you're representing, it may bring some healing and some shifts for you. So even as an observer, we can have a lot of advantage, a lot of gain, a lot of understanding. So yeah.
So I think we're done. No more questions coming up. Just in case if you're interested in having the workshop with Shaista, let me know so that we can
Sure.
arrange it and plan it well.
Thank you so much, Shogufta, for having me here again.
And it's always a pleasure. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Zeba, for joining. Lovely having you all here.
Thank you, Shaista and
Thank you,
Shagufta Bhagi.
Shamsia. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anita.
Bye.
Bye.